Hello and welcome. Today I'm very excited because we're going to be talking about the hiring process. I'm Biliana and I'm joined by Sihab, Susie and Caroline, and firstly I'm going to let them introduce themselves and then we'll get right into it.
Hi guys, my name is Sihab and I'm a data analyst apprentice at Capgemini.
I'm Susie, I head up early careers recruitment at Capgemini.
I'm Caroline, I'm a senior recruitment manager within the early careers team at Capgemini.
Perfect. So as I said, I'm very excited for this one because if I was a student, I'd be listening very carefully. So I think if we just sort of start with the process and start at the very beginning, which is the online application. So who wants to talk us through it and tell us what it's all about?
Well, we'll probably all talk a little bit maybe and see how we go. So firstly, I'd like to say, recruiting apprentices is really important to Capgemini. So the application form is designed to get the best out of you because ultimately we want to bring in lots of apprentices. It's a great thing for our business. So what I would say in the first instance is, try not to be fearful of it. It's just there to learn some more about you. But we do want to understand a bit about why you want to come and work for Capgemini, why you're interested in that particular apprenticeship. So the first thing I would say is do a bit of research, look into the early careers section of our careers site, find out a bit more about it, and then you're better informed as you start to complete the application form. Caroline, I don't know if you want to add to some of the things we look for.
Yeah, so I think the application form is a mixture of like motivational questions, so like why Capgemini, as Susie said there. So research is hugely important, and I think to be able to demonstrate in the application form really helps us as recruiters to also know where to best place you as an individual. That's part of our obviously roles. So the more that you put on the application form, the better it is for us. I would also say there's nothing in there to trip you up as individuals. So we are a tech company, but we're not necessarily screening on technical ability at that stage. So yeah, it's just really like a place for you to showcase your strengths on the application form. And what I would say is that you make sure that you kind of show a little bit of personality in the application form as well, and also bring to life a little bit more about you and maybe extracurricular stuff that you do in addition to, I guess, the standard questions around the screening criteria that we look for, which is, your academics, etc. So yeah, that's I guess I'd add.
And I think that what I would also say is, it's I don't want people to overly worry about it, but if you were applying to university and you were filling in the UCAS form and you were thinking about all the things you wanted to say, it's not dissimilar to that. So please don't just put a one-liner in and think, I'm attaching my CV, they can see all about me on there. It is an application form, so it's important that you do your research and put some information in there. No example is too silly. If you've got involved with all sorts of different clubs, societies or teams or, working a Saturday job, anything like that, just put it in. It shows that you can hold responsibility, be part of a team or whatever. So I don't know if you want to talk briefly about what you might have thought of the application process itself.
Yeah. So I'll start by saying how I applied online. I did some research online, I found the application process and applied, and then shortly after I got a digital interview.
Great. Yeah, so that is the second stage of our assessment process, and probably the bit that apprentices are the most concerned about, I think, the digital interview, because it's a set of pre-recorded questions, and I know that is a bit of an uncomfortable part of the process, but again, it's there just to hear more about your strengths and your interests. We want you to feel as comfortable as possible and try and pretend there's a human behind the lens as you talk to camera. We do assess it in my team, and although we're not there, try to sort of bring a bit of your personality to it whilst you answer questions, but please don't worry about it. And the best advice I can give is practice on your phone, practice in front of your family or friends or your school, because it's increasingly part of a recruitment process, pre-recorded digital interviews. So it's good just to get comfortable with it and learn a bit more about it.
Yeah. I think one of the...
You
go.
One thing when I did mine is I had someone behind the camera and I was speaking to them as I was answering the question, and that actually helped me a lot. Just keep the eye contact. Just move your hands, feel comfortable, because you shouldn't feel under pressure. It's fine. It's just a few questions and that's it.
That's great tip.
That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
No.
Yeah.
Because I think it can be quite daunting because it feels a bit unnatural.
Yeah.
But so the more you practice, as you said, and
Yeah.
again,
Practice
that
makes
tip I think
perfect.
it's really important. But I was just going to say one of the benefits of a digital interview is that you can do it at your own leisure as well. So one thing I would say is, don't rush to complete it. Take the time to practice. We've also got on our website demos that are available, and so you can do like a practice run as well. So just to familiarise yourself with the technology as well, because sometimes that can mess up as tech does. So that is one of the benefits, but also you can do it in your own environment at the right time for you. So I think finding like a quiet time to do it when maybe people aren't in the house and you're not self-conscious and stuff like that. So just being mindful of all of those different, I guess, things, components that add up to the digital interview. But it is relatively short though as well. I think people think that it's a really long process, but it's not.
So is it all in the digital interview? Is it all? Do you have to answer every question by video, or is there like a written question form as well, or is it all video?
They're all video responses. Yeah.
Okay.
They give you 30 seconds to come up with an answer, and then you record your answer, and that's it.
Okay.
And you can re-record your answer as well. So if you don't necessarily get it right the first time, or you don't think you've come across with the right detail, you can re-record it as well.
Also,
Sorry,
please, I don't want to cut you off.
I was going to say it's probably worth mentioning as well, around the adjustments.
Yeah. So at any point in the recruitment process, we would want to know if you had any reasonable adjustments that we needed to make. So, for example, if you need extra time in the process, we might take the timing conditions away from the digital interview. Or change the assessment centre slightly, and we can come on to that. But it's really important that you let employers know any reasonable adjustments that you have, because it's there to make sure that we level the playing field, we give everybody opportunity. So the digital interview, it's timed, your answers, but obviously if there was a reason why you needed it to not be timed, then we would take that away.
Yeah. So it sounds very comforting and accommodating for the candidates, which I'm sure they appreciate. I know I did for my digital interview because I was very nervous. And I think a question that I have, and I have a couple, but the main one is dress code in the digital interview. What is that about? Because I wasn't sure what to wear for mine. Is it casual? Do I have to wear a suit? What do I need to do? Because you're on camera.
Yeah, so I think for the most part people are smart casual. So obviously it is a form of interviewing. So I would say, dress to impress, and also be a bit mindful of your background if we're talking about, I guess, how you're presenting yourself, because we've seen all sorts. So just be mindful of what's in the background. But so I would say business casual, it's how you want to come across, because you are being obviously reviewed by potential people that you'll be working with. So I think you just need to be mindful of that, is what I would say.
So no pajamas, guys.
No, but we have seen that.
Wear something that you're comfortable in. You don't need to wear a full suit. A little a polo shirt, a shirt and a tie, something simple that you feel comfortable in. It's perfect.
Great.
Yeah, because you've got to feel comfortable to then feel relaxed. But also I think there's something about dressing in a certain way that makes you feel that you're
ready.
Yeah,
I agree. I completely agree. So can we talk about the types of questions that you ask? Maybe a few examples that we can give.
Sure. So it's a mixture again. So I guess it goes back to that research piece, as and your motivations as to why Capgemini. So there's questions that are based around that without giving too much away. So more about that specific role. So in our apprenticeship space, there's obviously a number of different roles that you can apply to and be interviewed for, so they then become a bit more role specific, but you'll know the role that you've obviously applied for, so therefore it shouldn't be a shock to you. So it's more around, I guess, why you feel that your individual strengths would apply to that particular role that you've applied for. I've not actually told you any questions there. Can we say any questions?
Yeah, well, I would give one or two.
So I guess, so it's well, what's motivated you to apply for Capgemini? What is your understanding as Capgemini as what we do and who we work with? And can you list some of the clients and the things that we do, and or any of the solutions that we've delivered? And then role specific, it's more if you've, for example, I'll give a developer question. It's how have you used technology to solve a particular problem, and then it's obviously open for interpretation of what they want to apply to that, I guess.
When it comes to these online interviews, assessment center, I think Google's your best friend. You know, you can go on Glassdoor, anywhere else, just type in Capgemini Assessment Center or Assessment Center in general, and there will be a lot of tips just to help you out.
Do you remember any of the questions that you were asked?
A digital interview.
Yeah, so I was asked, because I did a data analyst, applied for a data analyst apprenticeship. They asked me about the cloud. So it might be, you know, technology related questions, something related to your role, why you wanted to do the role, stuff like that.
And again, you know, it's one of those things that if you're nervous, you want to get it over quite quickly, and you might give a very, very short answer. But remember, we are scoring what you say as assessors, as recruiters. So please, you know, make sure that you do fill the time. If you're given a certain amount of time, you know, try and fill that amount of time. And you can pepper your answers with things you've learned about the company, values and culture, and why it's a great place to work, whilst you're also talking about, you know, why Capgemini. So there's lots of things that you can glean from our website and on social media, and that you can kind of bring to life. And I would also say, you know, bring some enthusiasm to your answers. It's not just what you say, it's kind of how you say it, and demonstrate that you are, you know, really interested and excited about the opportunity.
One thing that you can also do is you can go on LinkedIn and, you know, find people that do work for Capgemini that already did the apprenticeship, or they're doing the apprenticeship, and just reach out to them, ask them questions, because they're always happy to help.
That's true. Everyone on LinkedIn is always happy to help. I think one thing for me with the digital interview was, on your point about how to say it, because it's a digital interview and it was my very first one, I thought, I feel like a robot and I'm coming across very rigid. So I had to kind of step back and tell myself, these, you know, they want to see your personality, they want to see who you are. Would you say that's correct, that, you know, you don't want the applicants or candidates to kind of sit there and just be answering the question, but you want their personality to shine through?
That's right. You know, we want you to be yourselves, and everybody has different personalities. We have extroverts and introverts and all sorts of different types of people coming through the process. But you want to hear in your voice or in the words that you use and say that there's interest and passion there. So just, I know it's hard, but just try and be as natural as you can, as if you were talking to somebody in the room, and try and bring it to life. We know that you're nervous. We take that into account. But you know, the more you can do to kind of demonstrate you, the better, really. And also, you want to make sure that Capgemini is the right place for you. So all of this process is also designed to make sure that, you know, we're a place you want to work. So you'll see more of that as we come on to talk about the assessment centre.
Can I ask a question here? As a recruiter, what sort of qualities do you look for when someone's answering this question? Is it how well they answer the question, the tone of the voice, how confident they look?
Well, I mean, we look at all of those things, trying to take into account, you know, people have different strengths and personalities, and sometimes there's different requirements depending, you know, if you're going to be a sales type person or in a different role. So it's not a one fits all, but, you know, we want to come away from there thinking they've done their research, they're clearly interested, and they've explained a bit more about themselves and why they want to do the apprenticeship and why they want to come to Capgemini and do that role. And, you know, and you'll all do that in slightly different ways, but that's ultimately what we're looking for.
I think the communication aspect is really key. So, like, I think that's one of the benefits of digital interviews so they get to see a bit of you as individuals and how you come across. But like to Susie's point, we understand that you're going to be nervous, so we're not expecting it. It's not a two-way conversation. So, like as I said before, it's not natural, but they take all of that into account. So
so the assessment centre, then, that's the next stage. Should we talk through it? How does it go? Because I remember, for me, I loved the assessment centre. I thought it was very fun, and I met all the other candidates, and we had the group exercise and all of those things. So talk us through it.
So the assessment centre is typically the final part of our process. So the online application form, the digital interview, and then the assessment centre, kind of 3 steps. And this is perhaps what people are more used to expecting, you know, that they'll come together in a room and they'll meet other people, they'll meet people from the business, it's an opportunity to ask questions, and it will be a mixture of a one-to-one interview and a group exercise, which we will come on to. But it's a great opportunity then to you know, just, I suppose, interact in a more human way than perhaps you might have done so far. You're starting to meet people, and it will be a mixture of either a virtual assessment centre or a face-to-face. It does depend sometimes which one we do. Lots of the recruitment world gravitated towards virtual assessment centres, obviously, in recent years. So I can't say exactly which one that they would do, but the actual assessment is the same. It might either be virtual, it might be face-to-face, but you can talk in more detail about that.
Yeah, sure. So I guess in terms of, one of the things I like to get across is, I guess, how, how many, like, I can't think of the term actually now. How many people are there, basically? Because I get asked that all the time. So I don't know about you, but like, a lot of people typically think that assessment centres are like, you're going to go into a room, there's going to be like 30 candidates there, but that's not the case. So typically we have like assessment centres that are like from 6 up to like 12 candidates in attendance, and it's facilitated by the recruitment team, but also in terms of who will be there, you'll be interviewed by the assessors. And I guess you can talk about your experience in a little bit more detail from candidate perspective. But I think I guess the point I'm trying to get across is you are interviewed by people that are typically going to be the people that you'll be working with should you be successful. So the assessment centre itself, in addition to what Susie said, there's an intro session which gives you as candidates like an insight, as you'll both know anyway, so I don't know why I'm telling you this, but yeah, in terms of like you'll get an insight into Capgemini and who we are and what we do, but more specifically that business area and the people that you'll be working with, and a little bit more info around the clients that you'll be working with, and then you'll get to hear from our apprentices. So we think it's really important for you to have like insight into the apprentice journey, so there'll be apprentices there to answer questions, because obviously you don't just want to hear from recruitment and the business, and as you said earlier, I think the apprentices are always really helpful and to share their stories. They like talking about it. So so it's a two-way process. Obviously we want to give you as much information as possible, but with the opportunity for you as like candidates for the candidates to ask a lot of questions. And then we moved into the assessed exercises, which is the group, which is again, do you want to talk about your experience around the group then? Actually,
so the way assessment centres work is they put you in groups of 5, 6, and they put you in teams, and assessment centres are sorry again.
Don't worry.
I can, in terms of like the group and then maybe how you found it. So like the group exercise itself, it's like you say, smaller groups that can vary in numbers, but then you're given a task to showcase your, I guess, collaborative skills and how you can communicate and work with others in a team, which is obviously typical of what we do here at Capgemini, and to see how you work with others, individuals that you've never worked with previously. And as like Siab said, it's in terms of the exercise itself, you'll be working collectively together to come up with a presentation, which you then would present back to the assessors, who would be observing you. So just to showcase, I guess, how you work with others. And
so when you get into the assessment centre, you already shown that you have the skills necessary for the job. So you don't need to be worried about if I'm going to be good enough. You're already good enough. Assessment centres are all about showing who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. So when you do get into this group stages, you need to show that you're not shy, ask questions, one of Capgemini's core values is team spirit. So you gotta go around and get everyone together and make sure that everyone feels comfortable. You could do small things like ask them what the name is, why they're applying, small things that will bring everyone together, making everyone feel comfortable. Actually shows that you have leadership skills, and I think you guys would appreciate that value, things like that.
That's right. And what, as recruiters, we always say is if you don't speak, we can't score you. So again, there's different types of personalities in a room when you're assessing or online. So if you are somebody who's perhaps a bit more extrovert or willing to take the lead, always bring in quieter members of the group, give them an opportunity to speak. And if you're a quieter member of the group, and ordinarily you might go away and reflect on something before you speak, you just can't do that in an assessment centre environment, unfortunately. So you have to turn up the dial of your personality where you bring, you know, yourself into the activity, so that, you know, we can write about what you're doing and how you get involved. And there's different ways you can do that. You could be somebody who, you know, is scribing and taking notes if you're in the room, or keeping time to keep people on task. So there's different ways you can find a role. But participate, that's what I would say, you know, and equally if you're a more extrovert, don't dominate, you know, give people space so that everybody gets a chance. We often have multiple opportunities for people, you know, and it could be that we want all of you at the end of the assessment centre to land a role, so please don't see each other as competition, see each other as a team, that you bring out the best in each other, because you'll all score better if you work in that way.
Yeah. Take the lead when you can in, and if you see someone that's not participating or just quiet, just ask them a question, try to bring them in, things like that might help you shine.
Yeah, that's really important, I think, like, working together and because you ultimately, they could be your colleagues at the end of the day, you could be working together.
That's right.
Yeah, you can just do small things like, there's a timer, you 5 minutes today, and just keep track of the time. Someone's to speak and just tell them, what's your thoughts on this, stuff like that.
And there's a one-to-one part of the assessment centre as well, which is helpful to talk about, because sometimes it's been a while since you applied or done your digital interview. So re-look at things before you come on the day, re-revise, you know, re-research, and look at Capgemini again, because the person in the one-to-one interview will start asking you, you know, questions about Capgemini, your interest, the opportunity, the apprenticeship, maybe what's going on in the market, you know, so do a bit of research about what might be going on in the space that you've applied to, because, you know, we won't go back and exclusively just look at things you've said before. We want you to say it again. So you need to refresh and remind yourself of the reasons why you're motivated, interested and knowledgeable. You know, we also recognise you're not an experienced hire necessarily. You're not somebody who's worked for years and years and years. We're not trying to test you on all the experience that you've got. We're trying to test you on your potential, your interest, your strengths, and you know, some that you're aligned with our values, but you know that you're meeting the kind of things that will make you successful ultimately when you come in, because we want you to come in and have a good career here.
Yeah. So I think in the one-to-one interview, if I remember correctly, I think mine was like 3 years ago, there was a question that kind of put me off a little bit, and I'm not sure if maybe we can give an example of what's a good way to approach that question. And the question was, and this comes up a lot when, you know, students ask this a lot, but the question was something around what are your strengths and what are some of your weaknesses. And it's the weaknesses part that gets me, because I don't want to, you know, sound like I have many weaknesses.
I actually think I got the perfect answer for this one.
Go ahead.
You got tell them something that they can use against you. So you could say something like, you know, one of the things that I struggle with is my inability to say no to people. You know, I say things like, I have quite a low workload, and someone will come to me and ask me to do some more stuff, and I can't just say no to them. You know, things like that that show that you care about other people, that always try to do more, stuff like that.
And you can also talk about how you've learned from it. You can say, you know, I used to find that I did X, but I did this, and now I don't do that anymore, so I've overcome. You can also show progression. I mean, I have had over the years as a recruiter working for many different organisations, people really tell me some weaknesses that you think, gosh, I never needed to know about that. You know, I'm disorganised, I don't get work in and on time. People will literally tell you things that you think that's not, you're here to showcase. So I agree. Give them something that you know, is something that you've either learnt for, or something that is could be doubled as a strength. You know, sometimes I'm so interested in things, I overwork, and I don't want to spend too long. You know, well-being is important. I want to work within normal hours. So you know, I've taught myself to you know, as enthusiastic as I am, to you know, be stricter on my time, or you know, you can talk about things that you've learnt from, but you don't have to tell everybody the complete truth, you know.
But I think being self-aware is quite important as well. So you know, just being able to acknowledge where maybe you're not necessarily weakness, I'm not too sure that I love that word, but in terms of like knowing where room for improvement is. I think, you know, that is good. Everybody wants to learn and develop, and I guess that's part of being on an apprenticeship as well. So like so I think, but I know what you mean. Like I'd automatically think, oh my gosh, I'm going to tell them, and they can use it against me. So
it was a difficult question. I think the direction I took it was, you know, I don't think I'm the best at this right now, but I'd love to you know, work on developing it or improving at Capgemini? Because I know
Perfect.
you guys
Yeah, you're spinning it.
would often
Yeah,
exactly
like,
spin it on them.
but like,
One
obviously
thing,
mean it.
one thing that I found that when I was applying to different assessment centers, I was getting through the one-to-one interviews, that most of these companies, they'll ask you similar questions, you know, question about yourself and why you want the company. And in order, if you want to prepare for that, you can just go on YouTube and just search up frequently asked questions assessment center and stuff like that, and just go in with, you know, with an answer already in your head, so that when they ask you, you're already prepared for the answer.
Absolutely, yeah. And when I apply, even as somebody who's been working for a longer period of time, I will always look at the company values, the things that they might look for, and prepare some answers of examples of times I have used those values.
Yeah.
And at some
Yeah.
point, you will get them in an interview
Yeah.
process. So
It's always
you know,
important to
it's-
include them.
having examples up your sleeve that you're ready to talk about, because everyone's got good examples, it's thinking of them on the spot. So I would just write some notes and think, right, I know they're going to ask me at some point about, I don't know, working with other people or working with, you know, different stakeholders or whatever it might be, and I'll have examples ready, and the question might not be exactly the same, but you'll have some examples you can use, and it's just having that so you're not thrown and can't think about an example on the spot.
And I think as well, like, don't limit yourself to like thinking that you have to give us work examples, because we recognise that you may be early on in your career, as you said, not always, but you may be taking your career in a completely different direction, like by doing an apprenticeship. So don't limit yourself to work examples, but use some examples that I guess also showcase your personality and you as individuals. So, you know, what do you do outside extracurricular like activities? You know, do you do work with like charities, volunteering? Like, what makes you, I guess, a bit like driven, and what's your passion, and try and apply that to some of the answers, because that way they get an all-rounded view of you as an individual as well. So yeah, vary the answers, and there'll be a lot of stuff where you have, like, that you may have done where you've got like transferable skills. So like team, like working in like sports, like you can, that's teamwork. So
Yeah.
you can apply that. So like try and think outside of just work examples is what I would say. There's a lot that can apply to the questions, I guess, that we ask.
Yeah, and if you're early on, you're listening to this and you're still at school, or think about what can I get involved with now that means I've got some good examples to talk about, you know, so get involved with things in and outside of school. It just makes your examples richer and easier to come by. You know, if it's important to obviously study and do all of those things, but think about, you know, the things that you might do as well as that.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be anything crazy, just things like football after school, maybe you got debate club, something like that, just something that you like, enjoy doing. And
So Sihab, what did you do? Did you do any extra outside of obviously the school stuff?
yeah, so during my time in college, we had a football team, and we used to go play against all the different teams from other colleges around us. And, you know, that's one example that I did use during my one-to-one interview when they asked me, you know, some show team spirit, you know, because that's one of the core values that we have at Capgemini. I just gave the example that, you know, I enjoyed playing football, and I used to bring together everyone to play, you know, just friendliness, just all team playing.
Yeah, and you know, some people don't do sports, but what are some other things that they can mention other than sports for team building that, you know, that can help them shine in the application process?
I mean, it can literally be any hobby or volunteering or work experience or anything that you've done, really. There is always an example in that. So, you know, some people will say to me, I didn't want to talk about that because I worked in a shop and I thought you'd be looking for people who've got a year work experience in something directly relevant. But, you know, I always say, don't think any example is too silly. You know, if you play an instrument once a week or anything, is showing that you've got commitment to things, that you can balance priorities, that you've got energy that you'll put into things. There's always examples that you can use, you know. And we want to recruit people from a very diverse background, from different types of schools. So there isn't one example that we're looking for. We're looking for people who have just can tell us a bit about what they've done in and out of studies, and talk about the impact that had and how they managed that. There isn't an example that's, you know, a more preferable example than other. It's an example that you can bring yourself and talk to.
So it's great to know that is all sorts of things outside of work, things that you just simply find fun or it's your hobbies. What are some other examples then?
I mean, it honestly could be anything that you're interested in or enjoy. So, I mean, my children just happen to be really interested in drama, so they get involved in lots of plays, and that's really built their confidence, their ability to work in teams, to work under pressure. You know, my son in particular, and lots of students I come across will talk about gaming, you know, their gaming world, and they're very committed to that. So some people, that's they're part of teams online, or, you know, Pokemon was huge a few years ago, and people, you know, invested a lot of time and energy in being good at that. So we're not really concerned about what it is you do, we're just interested to hear that you can balance things in and out of your studies.
Anything that you're passionate about, interested, that you just like to speak about, you know, like for example, I like shoes, so I like to talk about shoes, you know, the different shoes that I like to get, you know, maybe watching a movie, you know, Avatar just came out recently, you know, it's a lovely movie, anything that you like to talk about.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because we had a recent applicant who had set up her own business, because she really had a brilliant hobby, which Caroline can talk to in a moment, and she made it into a business. So she was able to bring that part of her life. So, I mean, Caroline, you can explain a bit more about that.
Yeah, no, it was a really good example, because it obviously demonstrated, I guess, her passion again. And I think I keep going back to passion, but I think, and I guess her individuality. But she'd set up her own craft business on Etsy, and she was just saying about how she had to learn about the business side of things and stuff like that. But it was also, it wasn't anything she was going to pursue necessarily as a full-time career, but it was just something that she enjoyed doing on the side, so why not? So I thought that was really good to see on an application as well. Obviously it demonstrates a lot of different strengths by creating your own business and having that on the side of your academic studies as well. So yeah, literally anything, and I keep going back to the individual piece, because obviously whatever you're passionate about makes you, and I think that's what you need to showcase. And no, I think you said it as well earlier, Susie, but no answer is silly. Just bring it to the table.
And you know, ultimately we want to bring in people with very diverse backgrounds, diverse experiences, so we don't all think the same and do things in the same way. So you know, we're looking for people just to tell their story really, and come in and showcase stuff that they like and why it makes them them.
So we're running out of time, but I thought we could go around and, as a final bit for today's episode, say some of our top tips. Do you have any?
I'd say it's when you walk into the assessment center, everyone feels nervous, but that's okay. Everyone feels the same as you, so just be confident, believe in yourself. You know, I'd say try to ask a lot of questions. You know, body language helps a lot, the tone of your voice, how you speak. You know, I like to move my hand, it shows that I'm energetic. So things like that. That's pretty much it, I'd say.
Yeah.
I would say do your research, so that you're well prepared for each stage of the process, but get on with it. You know, some people take so long researching that they don't get their application in, and you may find that means that there's just so many people ahead of you in the process, you won't get through to the final stages. So I always say hurry up, take your time on doing it well, but get your application in and get going.
I think for me, just throughout the whole process, I keep going back to the personality piece, but I just feel like you can't teach people passion, and I think it's demonstrating that. But I think that, just to Susie's point about research and, you know, looking at the values, but also looking at some of the stuff that we do and trying to align that to you as an individual. You know, we work, Capgemini works with the Prince's Trust. Is that something that's important to you? We've got lots of different networks that we have here within Capgemini. So is it that's brought you to Capgemini, and try align that to your individual, I guess, views and why it's the place to work for you, because obviously we'll be trying to get that out of you, but there's obviously something that's drawn you to Capgemini, so try and evidence that at every stage in the process, and we get to know more about you.
Yeah, I think I'm with Caroline. I think that would be my top tip as well, is just show that you're passionate, and show that, you know, you're enthusiastic for our sector, the role, the company. We want to, you know, we want to see you shine. That's what we're all about. So thank you to our panelists, Susie, Caroline and Sihab, for joining me, and unfortunately that's all the time we have for today, but thank you for joining us, thank you for listening, and until next time, bye.